Kindly asking you to stand for the national anthem and the national song.
God save our gracious King. Long live our noble King. God save our King. Send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save our King. Oh, we salute this land of ours, our country we declare, this promised land with its beauties grand, though small it is our own. Turks and Caicos, our country firm and free. Our allegiance, Turks and Caicos, we pledge and we affirm. Our people forged and blend with multiplicity, of race and kind and greed and tongue, united by our goals. From the east, west, north, and south, our banks and oceans meet, surrounding sands and hills of glee, our pressed in beauty see. Turks and Caicos, our country firm and free. Our allegiance, Turks and Caicos, we pledge and we affirm. We stand with courage brave to maintain this land of ours, with islands scattered here and there, with trust in God we stand. Turks and Caicos, our country firm and free. Our allegiance, Turks and Caicos, we pledge and we affirm. Our allegiance, Turks and Caicos, we pledge and we affirm.
Okay, thank you. We will now invite Pastor Kelvin Charles to invoke God's presence on this evening's proceedings.
Pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you and pray. Lord, we pray 1 Timothy 2 over this entire symposium. We're encouraged to pray for those in authority. We're encouraged to pray for those who labor and do their best among us. So I pray for educators. I pray for the teachers who have given their time, talent, and treasure. I pray a blessing upon them in their endeavors. I pray for endurance. I pray for strength because, Father, sometimes it's overwhelming, it's discouraging, and the hard work sometimes seems like there's no fruit. So I pray for spiritual sustenance for them. Lord, I pray that out of this symposium, not only ideas, but I'm praying for strategic wisdom. Wisdom that would find itself in policies, wisdom that would find itself in the execution of those policies and plans for the betterment of the Turks and Caicos, for our children. So I pray, God, that you will go before us in this entire discussion that would be happening this evening. And I pray that much fruit will come from this, that in months and years to come, that the educators and teachers and principals can rejoice because they've laid the foundation, planted the seed, and I pray that you'll give water to it. So I bless the proceeding in Jesus' name. Amen.
Honorable Rachel Taylor, Minister of Education, Youth, Sports, and Social Services. Mrs. Keisha Taylor, Deputy Secretary in the Ministry of Education. Mr. Edgar Howell, Director of Education. Our esteemed guest speaker, Honorable Robert Hall. Our chairperson, Ms. Shalane Bean. Education officers, principals, vice principals, teachers, students, other specially invited guests, our TVET Dean, Mr. Baxter, and last, by no means least, our most capable panelists. This year's Education Week is being celebrated under the theme, Human Capital Development, Success for Every Learner. It is therefore quite fitting that a forum has been created that allows many of the key stakeholders in education to have a conscientious dialogue surrounding a crucial ingredient in human capital development, our teachers. Today's symposium focuses on improving teacher retention in the 21st century and beyond through support and development. It is my strong belief that the first step in effecting any real change is being open, honest, and reflective. A genuine commitment to the teaching and learning process is necessary to ensure ideas become actions and actions create new and promising reality. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening promises to be a spirited discussion where challenges, solutions, and a rock-solid resolve to see the overall increase and retention of teachers, especially our local teachers, through increased support and continued development. The demand for teachers has increased significantly worldwide. Therefore, we must, especially as a smaller nation, continue to invest in an effort to retain what we have and attract what we need. Thinking strategically and doing things we have never done will yield results we have never seen. I bid you a warm welcome and encourage you to sit back and listen keenly as the movers and shakers among us give us their thoughts on quite a timely topic, improving teacher retention in the 21st century and beyond through support and development. Thank you. We now invite to the podium our chairperson for this evening's proceedings, Mrs. Shalane Bean.
Good evening, everyone. Before I move on, I would like to recognize the presence of our permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education, Mrs. Sherilyn Jones. Most high-performing firms and organizations thrive when they proactively plan, develop, and manage their human capital. This dedication demonstrates a recognition that an organization's success is largely determined by the performance of its people and the caliber of the service or product they deliver. In the field of education, our product is the future success of our students, our communities, and the social and economic well-being of our country. This year's Education Week theme, Human Capital Development, Success for Every Learner, highlights the fact that we understand that teacher performance and effectiveness greatly affect student success. As a result, we have a moral imperative to strengthen the quality and effectiveness of the education workforce so that we can better serve our students. This evening's symposium topic, Improving Teacher Retention in the 21st Century and Beyond through Support and Development, is quite appropriate and very important, given some of the issues we currently face in recruiting and retaining teachers here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. During the period 2018 to present, approximately 60 teachers left our education system. Therefore, this means that if we want to retain our teachers, we must provide them with support and opportunities for professional advancement in order for them to remain. Jane R. Best opines that retention is one of the dimensions of human capital development. She states that retention focuses on measures used to assist educators after employment. These measures include professional development, salary, incentives, working environment, as well as procedures for dealing with ineffective educators. Teaching in the 21st century comes with a complex combination of possibilities and challenges, as educational leaders, classroom teachers, students, and parents will all agree. Even though technology-based tools and resources have given the education community the capacity to successfully address these issues, teachers are still leaving the field here in the Turks and Caicos and worldwide. Research has overwhelmingly shown that the best method to increase student success is to have an exceptional teacher in every classroom and an effective leader in every school. As a result, it is incumbent upon us to try to give educators the supportive, productive environment they need to reach, teach, and support each student's learning needs. Finally, the opinions of our esteemed keynote speaker and our panelists on this important topic would unearth a myriad of ideas on ways in which we can improve teacher retention and support teachers in adapting to change and developing the necessary new skills so that they can continue in this rewarding profession here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I now call on our Minister of Education, Youth, Sports, and Social Services, Honorable Rachel Taylor, for her remarks.
Good evening, everyone. And it is indeed a pleasure to be here during our Education Week under the theme, Human Capital Development, Success for Every Learner. I also want to take this opportunity to say thanks very much to the numerous persons on the panelists who have decided to accept the opportunity to discuss such a most crucial and important topic. And of course, to our former Minister of Education, Mr. Robert Hall, thank you very much for accepting the opportunity for being our guest speaker this evening. Mr. Hall, I clearly remember you coming to Michael Teachers College, and I was so proud of you for being the Minister of Education just for the way you spoke. I remember you speaking when Mr. Shirley called him, and when everybody heard Mr. Hall open his mouth, everybody remained quiet, and my response was, that's our Minister of Education. You know we like show off. Now, I've prepared actually 2 speeches. The first one is just going to bring greetings, and then one will be more of a response to the panelists as well as to Honorable Hall's presentation. I am delighted to be here at the second Education Symposium as we celebrate Education Week across the country, with this year's Education Week theme being, I reemphasize, Human Capital Development, Success for Every Learner. The topic for this year's symposium, Improving Teacher Retention in the 21st Century and Beyond through Support and Development, is quite fitting. Teacher retention is one of the most challenging issues in education today, not only here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, but also across the world, resulting in countries struggling to identify strategies to improve teacher retention. Teachers play a crucial role in ensuring that our children have the skills and knowledge necessary to create a positive impact in our country and an extension, the world in this 21st century and beyond. Over the years, teachers may have become accustomed to the curriculum's pendulum swings, but the current state of affairs is unprecedented in many ways. Since 2020, we have observed the effects of COVID-19 on our educational system. Teachers were asked to forge relationships with students, with families and co-workers while adjusting to unanticipated circumstances. They had to employ synchronous and asynchronous education and had to teach in innovative ways. Additionally, during the last year, we have seen teachers across the Caribbean leave the classroom for many reasons. It has become quite clear now, more than ever, that we need to prioritize supporting and providing professional development opportunities for our teachers in order to retain them in our education system. In closing, let me reiterate how crucial it is that we must constantly bear in mind the words of Michael Morpurgo, who once said, "It is the teacher that makes the difference and not the classroom." Finding ways to boost teacher retention will thus be advantageous in helping us to enhance our educational system here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And let me say, I am so excited about what will be discussed because, to be honest, we are on a pathway to ensure that we provide all that is necessary to ensure that we equip, we upskill, and we retool our teachers so that they can be able to effectively deliver not just education, but quality education here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I must say to the panelists who are here, be very frank in your discussions so that we as a government will be able to make serious, informed decisions, all in the best interest of our students. Once again, thank you, and I look forward to a successful symposium.
Thank you, Honorable Taylor. Coming now to render a selection is students from the Clemens Howell High School.
and your life is out of hand. I know a man who can. I can walk upon the waters or calm a raging sea, but I know a man who can. Know a man who can. I can cause blind eyes to open or make the lame to walk again, but I know a man who can. Know a man who can. Some call him Savior, the Redeemer of man. I call him Jesus, for he's my dearest friend. If you think no one can help you and your life is out of hand, I know a man who can. I know a man who can. I know a man who can.
I would like to thank the talented students from the Clement Howell High School for that beautiful performance. Kindly give them another round of applause. I now call on Mrs. Sheena Stubbs, Vice Principal from the A. Louise Garland Thomas High School, to introduce our guest presenter for this evening.
Good evening, everyone. The biography of Honorable Robert Stevenson Hall, written by Sinclair P. Musgrove, District Commissioner of North Caicos. Robert Stevenson Hall is a giant of a man. Though not in physical sense, this history maker from Bambara has been nation building ever since. From Bambara All Age to William Knipp Memorial, later on to Michael Teachers College, this spokesman and future politician excelled in leadership as he gained in knowledge. The Robert Hall bio reads like a who's who. Though his story is really ever told, this small town boy with big city dreams dared to step out big and bold. While boys were taught to dive and fish, he was taught in Jamaican all-age schools. No school of fish for this young man. Chalk and pen became his professional tools. President of the Interschool Christian Fellowship, president of the Library Debating Society, 2 head boy and student relations officer were the building blocks by which he grew. In 1975, this master of words returned home to start anew. This forward thinker was well equipped with book smart and sportsmanship too. It was headmaster of Larimer Primary School, then a stint at the H.J. Robertson High, lastly, head teacher for the Adelaide Umla Primary School, where he served with distinction and pride.
In the 1980, he did a natural segue from teaching into the frontline politics. Those years of student leadership ensured that he was a perfect fit. No backbencher for this Renaissance man. He was tasked with the Minister of Education and Health. This modern-day thinker quickly revolutionized schools and hospitals, making his presence felt. Let the record show, and truth be told, it was his ministry from whence Clement Howell High came, and North Caicos Junior High evolved to become Raymond Gardner High with a brand new name. It was under his watch that teachers were told, leave the field or upgrade their qualifications. Scholarships were issued to incentivize, making it easier to get a good education. The closure of small schools was full of controversy, but Robert Hall was never scared. With bus services, this problem was resolved. As this minister continued in first gear, during his tenure as Minister of Works, Middle Caicos got its first paved thoroughfare. By the time he was finished, electricity was complete. Smooth streets and bright lights were everywhere. He started the Community Health Aid Program. It was he who caused the Myrtle Rigby Health Center to be. He was once the Deputy Chief Minister and Speaker of the House of Assembly. 20 years in politics. He's now retired. Expressions is his popular talk show. He moonlights as a taxi tour operator, corresponding for RTC News on the go. This proud father of 3 beautiful, intelligent girls is blessed with 2 grandsons. His dream for the Turks and Caicos Islands is to see us a successful, independent nation. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, please help me welcome our guest speaker for this evening, Honorable Robert Stevenson Hall.
Madam Chair, Honorable Minister for Education, Permanent Secretary of Education, the Director, other senior education officials, panelists, distinguished guests, boys and girls. I was pleasantly surprised when I received the invitation to be the guest speaker. As it seems to me, quite often when one is no longer in the political limelight or even in the educational limelight, they are really forgotten. But when I last checked, I still have a voice. Dementia hasn't set in as yet, so I can still put some thoughts together. I want to commend the Clement Howell High School for the beautiful renditions of the national anthem and the national song. And as indicated by the good little lady who introduced me, I certainly hope by that time maybe you will be at another league, but we will sing a national anthem that is truly national and reflective of who we are. She mentioned that it was during my ministry in the 80s that Clement Howell High School came about. I often use the phrase, your past is inextricably linked to your present and your future. And it's important that you know from whence you came. Marcus Garvey, national hero of Jamaica, he said, if you don't have the knowledge of your history and of your culture, then you are like a tree without roots. Back in the 80s, we did not have the kind of finances and development that we have today. And so most capital projects like schools and hospitals had to be approved by the British and financed by them. So you had to make a serious case. And when you look at what Providencia is today, you wouldn't believe that you didn't have a high school back in the 80s. And so I sat about trying to convince the Development Division in Barbados, which handled the funding, that this island was going to develop and we definitely need a high school. And I made the bold decision, very controversial at the time, but to achieve a certain goal. Because Providencial is used to get like 32 places for high school. Whether by design or only 32 kids would pass, I'm not sure. And they were dispersed between North Caicos Junior High, the high school in South Caicos, and in Grand Turk. So I recall instructing Dr. Linda Williams to do a survey for me to find out how many children would be 11 years old the following year. And I remember like now, she came back and said 132. To use the late Jeff Hanfield's expressions, I said to myself, that's the corn I want to grind. And so I wrote back to them and I said, now we are changing our education policy. We have 132 students for high school, and we're going to have a free flow system, doing away with the common entrance and increasing the technical, vocational subject areas. And I smiled when they wrote back, typical of these British, never give you what you really deserve. And they said, you don't need a high school, we'll give you a junior high. And I smile and I say, how silly. Because if you give me Form 3 now, isn't it logical the next year I will get 4 and the next year 5? And that's exactly how Clement Howell came about. So I have personal reasons to be proud of you and continue to do well. The theme that I have been tasked to speak to is improving teacher retention in the 21st century and beyond through support and development. This theme, in my view, is quite pregnant. And I hope in the ensuing several minutes, I would be able to help deliver several healthy babies. According to statistics, there are just over 400 teachers in the community college, secondary education, and primary education. I want you to bear in mind that number, because I'm coming to that. And so for the next several moments, I will make some suggestions as to what government can do, and then I will also make suggestions as to what teachers and educators can do. Because you see, this is not a one-lane street, so to speak. First and foremost, I have a challenge for the Minister of Education. And I would hope that very, very shortly, she would be able to convince the relevant persons to take a bill to the House of Assembly and ensure that those old retired teachers, and I can speak for them because, as I said earlier on, I retired many of them, including my own sister. Because for us to move ahead, we had to retire a lot of the untrained teachers. Mind you, I am forever thankful for the contribution they made. But if we are going to upgrade the system, then you have to make those tough decisions. And you see many, particularly look at the primary schools, as if that was the domain for Turks and Caicos Islanders, whether they are trained or not. But I certainly broke that chain. And I remember bringing in a principal as an experiment on one occasion And in Grand Turk, oh, they raised hell. But guess what happened? By the time he was ready to leave, they're begging him to stay. And I say that to say, Honorable Minister, once you have thought out something carefully, explain it to the people, the stakeholders, and you know that's the right decision, don't go according to the political winds as such, but do what is right for the people, and in this case, for the students, the children of our land. And so, for all those retired teachers whose pensions are between $500 and $600 a month, please fix that yesterday. I cannot for the love of me understand how we could provide $1,000 a month in unemployment benefits, not indefinitely, for many alcoholics and drug addicts, while our retired teachers who help to mold and produce even the leaders we have today can hardly make ends meet with that meager $600 per month in pension. Fix that, I say, and do that as early as possible. When I last checked, we had money. We still have money. And the Minister of Finance will tell you that at the end of the financial year, you're going to end up with over $80 million still there. So please do that. And certainly, with the mandate of 14 to 1, there is no stumbling block. So leverage that 14 to 1. I'm not trying to be political in any way. I'm just plain spoken. You came for that work? Worky, worky. Now on to some of these suggestions. Otherwise, it is incumbent upon government to improve the physical setting in which teachers operate and in which children learn. It is important to have that kind of environment that is conducive to learning. Now, again, it is going to need the cooperation of all concerned, because I am of the view that at times our children do not take care of the schools, and the frequent painting and repairs that have to be done each summer, some of it, I think, could be avoided. So parents and teachers need to urge the students to take much better care of what they have. And so there must be constant upgrade in the physical amenities, and certainly today, upgrade in terms of technology. You notice during COVID, when you could not meet, you had to employ technology to be able to teach your children. And it is important that you have the best in that regard. If we are to retain teachers, then you must regrade and pay teachers better. I don't see how any young man, if he is not fortunate to have a wife or significant other with a profession where she can earn quite a bit to complement what little he earns, I don't see how he could raise a family. In fact, not that money necessarily guarantees love, but I think they're placed at a disadvantage when it comes to finding a spouse, because the question is, can you take care of me? And the answer is obvious. And so, again, that is an area, not just for our young men, for teachers in general. But I mention young men because if you look around, even here this afternoon, the numbers speak for itself. And of the 400 and odd that Director Howell had informed me of, a very small percentage are Turks and Caicos, are males, and smaller yet are Turks and Caicos Islanders. So it is very important to improve the salaries of our professionals. Teaching is by no means a lost art, but regard for it is a lost tradition. That is what one unknown author said. And that is true. Years ago, when you were a teacher, society looks up to you almost like a mini god. Today, that has changed tremendously. And I have heard of instances of parents and children coming to school, challenging teachers, threatening them, and so on the like. And so the burdens that teachers face, no other profession faces it. Another unknown author said, teachers teach every profession. Isn't that a truism? Whether you're a scientist, a doctor or lawyer, they had to be taught. Had to be taught. And so we must not only just pay lip service to this. And sometimes I sat back when I hear some of our leaders talk about the shoulders upon which we stand. And I often wonder if they even remember the shoulders. I would like us to really give our teachers their roses while they live. Because useless the roses when they're gone. Useless. You see, reward, as they say, sweetens labor. And therefore, without emphasizing it even more, it is important that an exercise be done extremely soon to regrade and pay teachers much better. I am of the view that while the emphasis must be placed on training our own people, we must recognize that there is a limited pool, and for various reasons, maybe fewer yet, who are interested in pursuing careers in education. So while we must provide the incentives to attract more of our people, but we must still seek, in my view, to retain some of the excellent contract workers in this country. Years ago, a certain government official said, because I remember when the gratuities was something like 15%, and I think it was lowered to 10. I don't know exactly what it is now. 6? Oh gosh, going lower and lower. And that official said, because I opposed it. Now, I don't mind when people say, you're pro-foreigner. That's nonsense. I know what the thinking is, why I said that. And I'm sure the Honorable Minister Director will do realize this. We are competing with others. The Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Canada, elsewhere. That is why so often when school opens, people criticize the department thinking they didn't do their jobs because there's a shortage of teacher. But what is happening? That teacher, whether from Guyana, Jamaica, Trinidad, or wherever, they would have sent applications here and elsewhere. And in the last moment, when they get that answer from somewhere else, what do you think happened? Like they say, bush crack and man gone. That is the reality. Canada and many other countries, they are using their immigration policy, fast-track the path to status for such individuals. And in so doing, actually, they are causing a brain drain for many West Indian islands. I am not saying we must do this carte blanche. No. For instance, if you have an excellent maths teacher, and just let me use it as an example, because as you know, maths teachers are really a scarcity around the Caribbean for that matter, all right? You see, I've been out of education, but I'm completely out of touch, all right? And so, if you have such an individual, why not give him that kind of security? And like I said, lay that path towards status that you can retain his service. Yes, in the kind of atmosphere we have here in Turks and Caicos, where a number of our people are, in my view, misguided and develop this very strong anti-foreign feeling, we have to make these moves and certainly explain it to our people. Because this is one of the things I often say, Honorable Minister, about this government. They come up with some brilliant ideas and are doing a lot of good things, but their PR is not effective. And when you do not properly explain to the people the benefits of various moves, like the transition of the tourist board, like the call for members of the diaspora, some of them to come back, then people begin to speculate and they come to wrong conclusions. Therefore, it is important upon government to get that aspect, their communications, right. I suggest that there should be regular stakeholder meetings, whether by way of webinars or what have you. It is important to provide that avenue for the cross-fertilization of ideas. And when officials, be it ministers or education officials, have such meetings, don't just speak to, but speak with. Make it a two-way thing. Because like I always say, when one is elected or put in a certain position, that does not automatically give you an exclusivity on ideas. And you'd be surprised sometimes where brilliant ideas may come from. The final point, because I certainly don't want to bore you, that I would raise as far as what government can do. They can utilize the land policy. Now, I commend the government because I have seen several changes made in that direction. Now, of course, my idea was broader than even what government is doing. And again, I go back to history to justify what I'm talking about. When the British loyalists came to these islands, they were given, hear what I say, given? Thousands of acres of land in compensation for the slaves they lost in the United States. What was given to the slaves and their descendants? Tell me. Absolutely nothing. And that is why I have championed the cause of a local reparation, so to speak. And what do I mean by that? Every stick of crown land, particularly residential, should be placed in a land bank reserved for Turks and Caicos Islanders. And subdivisions should be created whereby Turks and Caicos Islanders, teachers, of course, included, could access plots to build their homes, if not totally free, just with the administrative costs. Because that is a critical thing for most young persons. And if you're living in Providenciales, you know what rents are like. it is beyond the reach of the average teacher. And so I see where government can use the land policy to empower our people and teachers in particular, and so doing, aid the process of teacher retention. I promised you at the beginning that I will also speak to what teachers themselves can do. And yes, there are a number of things that you can do. Number one, constantly upgrade yourself. Don't be complacent because you may have a first degree. Move on, whether it's some other certificate courses, specialized areas, or do your master's or what have you. It builds your self-confidence and hence make you more marketable. And at the end of the day, hopefully, you get better increments because of your advanced qualifications. So constantly upgrade yourself. And there are two words I want you to bear in mind and take this with you when you leave. Mobilize, organize. Mobilize, organize. What one of you can't do, 20 or 30 can do. If there is a problem and you wanted a solution, the minister or government might not listen to one of you, but I'm damn sure they'll listen to 400. Don't you think so? Absolutely. Because there is strength in numbers. And of course, there's strength in unity. So you need to organize and mobilize. You need to have a proper teachers' union. And not this thing I hear them almost like the politicians. When they're campaigning for the office, you hear all sorts of things. And I'm talking about the Teachers Association, or whatever they call it now. And then after that, you hear little or nothing. Organize themselves. This is a country where trade unions haven't gotten off the ground. And many things, the workers in general, they look to government to do when government is actually the judge and jury, if you see what I mean. And so you really need to have proper union that you can make your petitions to government, you can bargain with them. A second phase or thing that you can do to increase your comfort, organize credit unions. Organize credit unions. Almost everywhere I know of in the Caribbean have had trade unions and have credit unions. What's wrong with Turks and Caicos? I don't know in that regard. Quite frankly. For instance, let's say, use the 400 number. If 400 teachers contribute $50 a month towards their credit union, at the end of the year, if my maths is right, that's like $240,000. Some of you brilliant minds, isn't that so? Okay? And then government has set aside some seed money for credit unions. And I commend government for that. I can lick them sometime, but I can give them credit sometimes too. All right? And so you can access some funds on top of that. And the advantage with the credit unions is that you can lend to your members at lower interest rate than commercial institutions because you do not have the same overheads. If you go to the Bahamas, for instance, there are huge complexes where various credit unions have. Cayman Islands is strong. Jamaica is strong. You know? And so, for instance, a young teacher is struggling, has his house perhaps to Bell Beam or something. I don't know how far $40,000 could take you, but just for instance, you might need $40,000. The banks might not smile on you, but your credit union certainly can. And so the key there, again, like I said, mobilize, organize. I am of the view, too, that what you need to do, where possible, sell some of your services to the private sector. I know some teachers who would have classes in the evening, and hence, from that income, augment what they are making. But you can expand that with the blessings of government. So, for instance, a good music teacher, rather than simply training voices, why not get an entertainment feel in the spare time? I think Provo can do with some additional proper entertainment. And when I say entertainment, I'm not downing our local guys, but let me make this clear. Entertainment is not just about jumping on the floor and dancing. It is a matter of giving your audience something to sit back and enjoy. You get what I mean? Why not? Some of you home ec teachers, for instance. I see where individuals from Grand Turk sometime comes down as private chef. And you should hear the sums of money that they make. You have a lot of these big guys and stars who come down and they live in private villas and they want chefs. Offer your services. You can do that. Some of you might be technical drawing teachers. Why not offer the service? And again, you can do that at a cheaper rate, perhaps, than some of the others, of drawing plans. And in each case, whether it is the home ec teacher, the technical drawing teacher, the woodwork teacher, pull some of your students along with you into those areas. I firmly believe that through these means, you certainly can help yourself, and in so doing, aid the process of teacher retention in the 21st century and beyond. I close with one of my favorite quotes, and it's again from a man who has inspired my life, Marcus Garvey. And he says, "The end you serve that are selfish will take you no further than yourself. But the end you serve that are for the good of all in general will take you even to eternity." God bless all of you.
Thank you, Honorable Hall, for such an insightful presentation. You have indeed given us much to ponder as you have offered many valuable and practical ideas that can be put in place to increase teacher retention. As we seek to delve into this topic at hand, our esteemed panelists, Dr. Carlton Mills, Mrs. Angela Musgrove, Mr. Jasmine Walken, Miss Elsie-Ann Delancey, and Miss Lucille Wilson will discuss what they think should be done to improve teacher retention in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Mills.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Honorable Hall, for your address. I just want to make reference to a document that Honorable Boyce initiated in 2006. She brought three men together, the late Reverend Conrad Howell, Reverend Bradley Hanfield, and myself. And she said to us, she wants us to put together an incentive package for teachers. It was done, but it didn't go any further until the PNP won the 2007 election, and we had a new Minister of Education. And in March of 2007, he took a paper, that same paper, to Cabinet, incentive package for teachers. It was approved by Cabinet, and it didn't go any further. The policymakers did not take it any further. I have a copy of it in my hand. By now, we could, if we had worked on this document, improve on it. Of course, it can be improved upon. We probably would have had a proper incentive package for our teachers. It talks about the classification of our teachers, succession planning. Honorable Hall talked about land. It talked about granting land to teachers, granting concessions to teachers. And as I said, it talks about the classification of teachers, types of allowances for teachers, salaries, professional development, medical insurance, not NHIP, but proper insurance for teachers. And it talks about retirement and a number of other benefits. So, Honorable Minister, this is something as a probably starting point that you and your team can probably revisit. And it saddens me that a lot of work was put into this and nothing came out of it. But I want to also add this whole thing about teacher shortage now. Why are we at this point? You know, do we have a data system in place that's telling us how many teachers have left and the reasons for their leaving? We need to have a proper data system in place if we haven't. But there are three things I want to look at quickly in terms of our marketing strategy. I think we also have to start, yes, we have to think about retention, but we have to think also about continuity. Continuity in the sense that we need to start recruiting locally. We need to start embarking on a serious local campaign to attract locals into the teacher education program, whether it's at the community college or wherever. Secondly, just recently, a commission in Texas looked at the same exercise that we are going through tonight, and they recommend a residency system. After you have recruited your teachers, those teachers who have graduated from the community college or wherever, instead of just dumping them into the classroom on their own, attach them, even while they are in training at the community college, attach them to a senior teacher so that they can, by the time they finish the community college, they will already have had a number of years of experience after being associated or working along with a senior person in the school. And of course, I think in terms of scholarship, I would go overboard, Honorable Minister, and recommend that at least 60 or 70% of the funds that are allocated for scholarships be allocated for teacher training. We could put professions like any person applying for law and some of the other areas on hold at the moment. Let's make teacher education a top priority. I'm going to stop there for the moment and give someone else a chance.
Hello. All right. Thank you so much for that question, Ms. Bean. One thing I would say is what I admire so much about the department that I work in, at the Department of Education, is that we have implemented a system where we have a bottom-up approach. I'm going to touch on the incentives and what Mr. Hall would have said, that sweetness to labor, that incentives make labor sweet. But what I admire so much about working in the department is that we have a bottom-up approach where we allow teachers to be a part of the process in terms of any any kind of activities that we have going on. But in touching on what Mr. Mills would have made mention to in regards to incentives, through my research, and in terms of my experience as well in the school system, one thing that I've realized is that there are three factors that really speaks to teacher retention. And those factors are individual factors, work factors. Individual factors speaking to whether the teacher is burned out, whether the teacher is stressed, whether or not there are any personal issues that the teacher is going through, and if that would have impacted their ability to stay within the profession. And then you have those work-related issues, and those work-related issues would be those issues that speaks to whether or not the classroom, the teacher is able to manage the class, whether or not the work is stressful for them, whether or not the environment is not conducive, whether or not the resources are not there. And then we have, at the ending, what I think is the most important factor in terms of teacher retention, and that is the social organizational structure within the school systems. What is going on in our school system, whether or not the structure there, whether or not the teachers are satisfied, whether or not there are any stress in between the environment, whether the environment is stressful for the teacher, or whether or not the teacher is able to be free and relax within that structure. And also looking at the leadership of the school, looking at whether or not the teacher has some kind of autonomy. I read a paper recently, and it looked at whether or not incentives was the deciding factor in relation to retention, teacher retention. And it looked at teacher retention in the US and also the Bahamas and Jamaica. And what they found was that incentives paid only 13%, but the overarching effect or the overarching factor for teacher satisfaction and job satisfaction and teacher retention, it spoke to whether or not the teacher was satisfied within the position and whether or not they had any kind of autonomy within their education system and within their environment, and whether or not they had any control over what they taught or the classroom decisions, the day-to-day classroom decisions. So when you're looking at teacher retention, I think that we also have to look at the organizational structure of individual schools. We have to look at whether or not the teacher is satisfied within the profession and try to come up with different strategies to ensure that we retain the teachers in that level. So that's what I have to add.
Hello, good afternoon. It's good to be here. Honorable Hall said that every profession comes from teaching, and it's correct, because Jesus was a teacher. So that probably encouraged some of us who are still in the profession, who are still laboring there, to keep on. Giving our service, you could almost say, for nothing. Because of the goodness of our hearts, you know, we are staying there. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, when they spoke about teachers' retention, I was thinking on local teachers. That's the thought that came to me, because I know what is going on now with the expat. We have no problem with them. We're not anti-expat or nothing like that, right? But what we have to look at is the real truth. Honorable Hall was saying how we should retain those expats. Some of them ain't coming to be retained. They're on a contract, 2 years, 3 years contract. So how you gonna tell them you get a piece of land? They're looking to go somewhere, further. They don't want to live in the Caribbean. So how you gonna retain them? So we have to look seriously at retaining your people who is here. When you already signed that contract, when something else come up, then they're gone overnight. And our classrooms are left Dizzling, that's where we get all the problems with the fights, with you name it, whatever comes through there. Because a teacher is gone. The other teachers who are already overloaded with work, you got to go split that in half, give that teacher some who is already overloaded, and you don't get nothing else for it. And the teachers have to sit there and try teach. So the fact is we need to retain our own. We know we have to bring in some, but we need to retain our own people. And until we come to that knowledge that this is exactly what is happening to us, then the system like is failing. People don't want to hear about teaching.
I think, Ms. Wilson, sorry. Go ahead, I thought you were finished. Sorry.
No, they don't want to even hear when you ask the children in the class, teacher, miss, I see what you're going through. Why do you think I'm going through that? Huh? You're not paying. Y'all don't, every time you ask, they come ask for $1. I said, boy, I ain't even get paid yet. So when you get a little pay, they come and ask you for money. They say, y'all ain't making no money. You know, so where are we going? Where are we going with this? How should we encourage these students? From students, we can't wait till they come out the classroom and go because they go into law, blah, 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 blah. It's like teaching is a sore point. Like, it don't make no sense or something is not spooling up. So we have to catch them while they're in the classroom. And what I'm saying is, if we do a program where we do a work experience program at Clement Howell, I don't know, not sure if all the schools do it, where you send the students out a day, okay, to at one institution, resorts or whatever, to do a day's work, or they get the experience. So what I'm saying, when these children are about to leave school, fifth form, you can bring the program from fourth form. You can get these students, see if you can convince at least 20 or 50 students for the year, because we have how many graduating each year? Like 400, 300 graduating each year. We can try, see if we can get 100 of them into the classroom. And by doing that, when they finish their CXCs, or even before they finish the CXCs, go into the class, into the classrooms. I did it before because with the program, we sent students to some of the schools, and the teachers reported back that, you know, they benefit a lot from it. So it will increase their love for the profession. And it's something that is in your hand, that you can control, that the ministry can do. Bring the children in now. Don't leave them out there, because when they finish school, they go on UK, they go on this K, they go on the other K. And they're not checking for Turks and Caicos Island. And the community college is free. I listened to the minister the other day at the symposium, Fit Farm Symposium, telling them about the community college is free. And when she asked them who all going there, nobody raised their hand. You know, I mean, you gotta do something to make them respect what you are offering them. They don't respect that they have free education, you got free college, and they just knock it off because they're going somewhere else, and then we training them and we getting nothing back from them. The other thing is, when last teacher said a raise. Come on now, we sit here. I heard Mr. Hall talk about the little association. Yes, that's the little thing that we can do. And you don't get much teachers to come in, because when we did the first strike that was held it was in the Turks and Caicos Islands by teachers, that was the first of its kind among civil servants, they cut the pay. And since then, you can hardly get a teacher to go on the Teachers Association. So we have an association. We are heard by, we ask for meetings with the ministry, the deputy governor. We had meetings. But like that paper Mr. Mills just talked about just now, nothing came back. We are heard. We are heard, but no response. And teachers don't want to be in a system like that. No response. We are being abused. Verbally, they speak to teachers any way they feel like. We know the children these days. We are being abused. So when he was talking about the insurance, mental health. No, it's serious. The way the children carry on now. I would talk about COVID-19. COVID-19, it was the worst with the technology. You got to deal with parents and you're dealing with students, the things we see, the things we heard. I mean, come on, is mental abuse. We need something, Honorable Minister. The little incentive, the $100 they gave us, that was back from 20 years now. Every time you say you want something, and I got $100, how much time pricing don't go up? The price of gas going up, the price of, if you buy one chalk, that the chalk, the marker, the eraser, you gotta buy, how much of that for the month? So where you gonna get the money from $100? I mean, people should be shaming themselves. You asking for something, and they $100. What they $100 from 20 years ago? Come on, we can do better than that. And I think we need to appreciate our teachers more, and we are not doing it. So if you have to show that so we can say that in the classroom. If you come into teaching, here's what you would get. Okay? You could bring in the other, well, we already could bring the car free, but that's for everybody, all civil servants. We're talking to get a little more personal now for like teachers. Okay? Like Mr. Hall spoke about the land. When teachers retire now, you got to go back to work. $600 can't pay the mortgage. So you retire us and we got to go back to work. So that pension thing needs to be looked at again for teachers. We can do better, but we don't have anyone pushing for teachers except the few teachers themselves. Come on, give us what we deserve so that we can attract the younger ones. You want to retain? Do something. So that when we come in these meetings, we can say, out of this meeting, I want to see that teachers got X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. Even if you can't give us 3 or would be asked or give us 1. That would at least sound better. Let me give somebody else a chance to talk.
I just want to, if you don't mind, I think Ms. Delancey made an important observation when she mentioned about the stressful environment in which teachers operate. And I think that is one of the reasons why I'm not defending the actions of contract teachers, but that is one of the factors that drive people out of the system, both expats and locals. And I think what is happening is that the system is overloaded. Every minute you're hearing about a new innovation. And for the life of me, the last one, I haven't heard any results about it. Has it been evaluated? Have we proven that this was workable or not? The point is, I think we are impressing too many innovations on our school system without analyzing or evaluating previous ones. And that is creating a stressful environment. But we have to bear in mind, in my view, we will never, ever be independent of contract teachers. And I think, I know of contract teachers who have left Turks and Caicos and gone elsewhere and are now citizens of those countries. I think after 5 years, if we appreciate having expat teachers here, we should grant them citizenship, full citizenship. That will help to retain them, I'm sure. Also, we should cut out this policy after, I believe, it's 3 contracts that you gotta go local. Those people have a livelihood. They have families like us. They have, we have to change that policy. And also, I believe that if we see credibility in contract teachers and they want to upgrade themselves, the government should assist them, but under condition. Everything must be conditional. Looking at local teachers, the ministry, as I said, I believe we need to start looking at growing our own. Give our local teachers equal financial incentives as we do contract teachers. When I became principal of Long Bay, I asked for a contract. I was told that's only for foreign teachers. local teachers can't get no contract. I only took the job because of passion for my system, for my people. I think we ought to give Turks and Caicos Islanders contracts, not only just a contract, gratuity,
Contract benefits.
housing, and everything else that goes with it. It's time we start treating our people like human beings. I'm going to stop there. And thirdly, we have to create a proper pathway to progress. Our pathway to progress is on political patronage and friendship. Pathway to progress should be based on qualifications and experience. I rest my case there for the minute.
Okay, let me just add, if you guys don't mind. Ms. Flynn, you don't mind me add? All right, I just wanted to add to some of the points that Dr. Mills mentioned. I felt the need to intervene before the next person come up. He spoke about stress and overload of teachers. And I know one of the opportunities that we have currently available for teachers, we have Ms. Stacy Jogi, who works, the educational psychologist, who is currently working with our teachers to kind of facilitate them and, you know, mediate the issues that they currently have, whether it's personal or work-related. Dr. Bills also mentioned what happened to those programs and teachers feeling overloaded. One thing I can say is that as the curriculum officer, any program that comes from my department is that we look intensely at monitoring and evaluating and also assessing previous programs. I don't believe in overloading teachers. I believe in the bottom-up approach, and that approach speaks to always involving teachers. I was a teacher myself for many years. I understand when things come from the top and drop on you, you are stressed. It's a lot. So I understand that. So any program that comes from my department, I can say that we use the bottom-up approach where teachers are involved throughout the entire process so that they are not bombarded and shocked when something comes into the system. More recently, we had our textbooks review. This is not something that myself and education officers sat down in a dark room and reviewed our textbooks. We involve all teachers in the entire Turks and Caicos. We involve groups. We involve them. We ensure that they are involved in the process so that they are not bombarded by anything that comes to them. So I just wanted to make mention of that while programs are coming from the department, we are ensuring the monitoring and evaluation of those programs. We are also ensuring the assessment of previous programs and match them against those new programs to ensure that we are effective as well as efficient. So I just wanted to add that.
Good. Probably the problem is that it's not being shared with the public. Yeah. We got... PR, all right, so that is why we're not in a position to know. Yeah. The thing about it is that we're talking about a farming program in school. We're talking about REAP. REAP? There's a TVAT. Have we been in all honesty, have we been evaluating these programs? Have we been sharing it with people? Have we? That's what I'm talking about, right? It's not personal, but if you talk to the average teacher, they are under stress. Yes. And because we are bombarding them with too many initiatives back to back. Let's space it out, make sure we properly evaluate them and do a proper assessment. Then we move forward.
I would interject here. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much for allowing me to have a presence on this forum. I've been in the classroom, I was in the classroom for quite a number of years. And I want to start by picking up on something that Dr. Mills mentioned and as it related to retaining our local teachers. And one of the pet peeves of mine has always been the way our government manages our local versus our contract workers. We understand that we're always going to need contract workers, and we appreciate the service that they give to any economy. But I can guarantee that the fact that we have had such a marks mass exodus from the service of contract workers and the fact that we've been unable to retain them or to attract them in the first place, there's going to be a sit down to see how we could improve the packages to get contract workers. So I would hope that when we sit down at those tables, that we would also look at how we can improve packages to retain local people. Because there's going to be improved packages, increased, whether it's remuneration and benefits, whatever it is, to get contract workers to come and sign on to come to Turks and Caicos. We need to do the same thing to ensure that local people get the same privileges and benefits that are afforded. So Dr. Mills, I completely agree with you there. We can't continue. You have, contract workers come in the system, they get housing, they get telephone, they get what else? Island allowance and everything else. So when they leave a system, they're able to afford a home and afford a house. And if they come off a contract, they're able to buy a house. But the local teacher can't even pay a mortgage, as Ms. Seeley said, when they finish with teaching for 20 or 30 odd years. Yeah, so we need to start there. We need to look at the packages. One of the things that I think we also need to do, Honorable Hall, very insightful remarks that you made, and your expertise in the education system is definitely appreciated, and your contributions that you've made over the years. You spoke about regular stakeholder meetings, and I think one of the things that we need to engage is regular feedback from teachers. So stakeholders and teachers need to be the first stakeholder in that process. And this goes back to some of the comments Dr. Mills made about ensuring that you're not constantly just imposing and imposing and imposing. I work with Junior Achievement as one of my philanthropic passions. And one of the principals said to me, Ms. Angela, I really wanted to, but I couldn't put something else on my teachers. So we really need to hear from teachers, because sometimes it's not a matter of, schools not willing to participate or schools not able to be effective and get a particular program. It's the workload. There's a lot of work on teachers, and we need to understand that. And more, you are finding increasing administrative responsibilities in addition to teaching. So it becomes more and more on the teachers. And then who hears them at the end of the day? Who hears them? So I'm not there, but from the outside looking in, we can see. Now, Mr. Lancy spoke about, we have a mental health person or a psychologist. I don't want to misquote you. But we got 400 teachers. That's what Honorable Hall said. So I ain't sure. I ain't sure how far one person could stretch between 400 people. But I ain't no mathematician either. So Mr. Adams, you could help me out here. One amongst 400, that's quite a tiny percentage to spread across. So if we're really serious about ensuring that teachers have support for mental health and the stresses that are afforded them in the classroom, then we need to put resources behind it. So I think a lot of times we hear, and even in this forum, we are sitting here. None of us are in the classroom. In this panel, Miss Seeley is in the classroom, but that's 1 out of 5. And I'm looking here, and we're talking about teacher retention. So who are we hearing from again for teacher retention? Shouldn't we be hearing from teachers? So where are they, and where are the voices that we need to be hearing from? Yes, Mr. Reed, I see you in the back, then I see your hand. But the voices about what would it take to keep you in the service, we need to hear from them as well, as opposed from, I appreciate the input of everyone who's out and looking in, but there also has to be some input from the persons who are in, and what does it take to keep you in? That's my contribution for now.
Okay, before we move on from the whole mental health issue, like you said, we only have one person responsible. What other wellness opportunities you think should be offered to teachers in order to retain them in the service?
Well, I think we need to start with resource first, because one could only divide so much. Mr. Adams, 1 divided by 400 is how much? So I really think we need to start there. We need to start with putting more persons, more resource persons, making more resource persons available, first and foremost. And perhaps then begin with an assessment rather than, because I think a lot of times we move towards we need to move towards more evidence-based implementation of strategies and policies. So looking at, not just me sitting down and thinking that this is perhaps what we need, but start with an assessment of where teachers are at and the types of resources that teachers would need in order for them to make them feel as if we really care about their mental health. So you have to find out from them, what are the things that you need? Where are the stresses coming from? Where are your stress points? So then you would know the kind of resources that you need to put in place in order to address the concerns. But you can't sit behind the desk and develop a policy for teachers because you're not addressing the concerns of teachers. So you're addressing the concerns you think is in your head. So.
Correct, Ms. Angelo. It's like you get little or no input in what, like you said, things just come down from the department like it just drop. And then the principal would say, this is a memo from the department, this have to be done and things like that. And teachers walk off and they grumbling and stuff like that. And people want to keep their jobs until further notice. And so you sort of go along with the policy. But nobody asks you, you are in the classroom with these kids. No one asking you what you should do. It's like you don't exist. You just send down the policies and you must go after the policies. Everything Jamaica do, we do it. It don't fit us sometimes. Not everything fits. Sometimes after Jamaica don't do when they see it didn't fit, they drop it, we take it out. So, and we should learn, if you did it, then you show me where it didn't work. Then, I should look at that and say, well, it can't work for, we're different. We're Caribbean, yes, but we are different. And we are a country now, and we should be proud of ourselves to make our own policies, put our books and our curriculum and stuff like that together. We depending on this country to do this so we can see where they're coming out with, and then we go pick that up. And it ain't suiting the children.
But Ms. Celia, I will say too, Honorable Hall mentioned the number of retired teachers that we have. We have a lot of retired teachers who've been in the classroom, who've been through. I think there's also an opportunity to utilize those retired teachers.
Exactly.
And put them to work in assisting us with being able to draft and to implement and to make representation. Mm-hmm. Why they home twiddling their thumbs when they could actually contribute? But no, we can pay one consultant to come in and do it.
Thank you, Ms. Angela. I was about to say that because you can't keep the teachers until they're 65. Guess what? We had this discussion before. Some teachers went home at 60, 61. If a teacher can still work, like you say, why you must go home, driddle with your hands and sit down there, get fat, get heart pressure, get all of that, and then you become a strain on national health. Because NHIP, after that, you sick, they got to send you out because you're home sitting down. All right? Why, if you can still work, why send home all those good, able persons? You understand? Just like you're saying. Like, Honorable Hall said, we ain't got Alzheimer's yet. I can see if teachers want to go home, then they send in and whatever. But why you save a couple of dollars, and so? If you send home 10 persons or 6 persons for the year, and you can hold them until they're 65 or whenever you feel like letting them go, you're saving a couple of dollars. That can help with resources in the classroom. You can put another $100 on the 100 that we have. You understand? Because teachers look at these little things because when time to print, you got to go spend the money to print. Oh, did $100 for the month? Where you can get it from? Come on now, treat us like human beings. Treat us like human beings. We are not getting that. You're not seeing anybody coming in saying, I'm having this teachers' conference on this day. Y'all come, let's sit down. You talk about mental health. If you come and talk to us, then you probably don't need the mental health lady because we're going to vent and say what we got to say. But if y'all ain't coming, then you're going to need the mental health lady. And if 400 of us get sick one day, who she can tend to? He played, come on, give us what we deserve.
Sorry. One of the other things I want to add to, the public service has to changed their outlook on their salaries. When I don't want to use myself as an example, but everybody knows my qualifications. When I went to Long Bay, I was put with all the experiences I had being principal of Madre Basin High, being principal of Raymond Gardner High, 10 years at the community college as deputy principal. When I applied for the job at Long Bay, I was placed at the bottom of the scale, right? Pay people for qualifications. We don't do that in teacher education. Oh, we got this, man, forget that scale thing and start paying people for their qualifications. Two other quick things you can do to retain teachers, particularly local teachers, is a number of us have families, small kids. Pay for aftercare for our kids, right? Make sure that teachers don't have to worry that, boy, 3 o'clock I had to get out of school, I can't even have take that stress, they know that they can have their kids in aftercare up to 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the afternoon. And then, if a teacher has children who probably don't want to go to government schools, give them scholarships to go to high schools, or private high schools. Make it attractive. We did it before. We've done it before. We paid for children to go to private schools. Let's make this thing attractive for our local teachers. How we can get the money? Good question. Are we going behind those developers for to meet their development agreements? When
That's not in development agreements anymore.
Sorry?
That's not in development agreements.
No, but when developers come here, my point, they took it out. My point too is that those who have never met their development agreement, can't we go back behind them?
It is no longer a provision in development agreements. That
No,
was taken out with the
those persons who have signed those agreements.
Those are older agreements.
Okay, but all right, since that, we have taken that out. I'm disappointed that we have done that. Really, I'm terribly disappointed. But my point is, let us find sources. We find monies for whatever we want to do. Let's find sources because we need to retain, we're talking about retention of our teachers. Angela, that announcement just shocked me, honestly. It just shocked the life out of me, right? Because they're coming in, they're not doing anything. Anyway, let's leave that for another day. But my point is, we should provide those kinds of opportunities for our teachers. The aftercare provisions, and also if a teacher wants his or her child to go to a private school, you probably don't meet them 100%, but meet them somewhere along the line.
Mr. Walken, let's hear from you. To what extent do you think parental involvement impacts teacher retention?
Parental involvement you mean, in terms of choosing a career?
No, parental involvement in terms of parents of students in our schools.
We have those. I think it's a big impact, but remember parents, no offense, most parents today are children themselves. Because if you check out, no, I'm being honest, most of the parents today are children. They are different generation. And one of the factors that we haven't touched in this whole conversation is the impact of immigration, legal and illegal, on this whole school system. We are talking to parents sometimes who don't speak our language. That's why the PTAs can't function in no high school in the country. Because that's the truth. 90% of the PTA don't speak your native language. And half of them may not even be legal. So they ain't coming to the meeting anyhow. But so that is a major factor. I was trying not to talk tonight. They make me sit beside the pretty lady in white so that I could be distracted most of the night. It was working. But that too. But you know, piggybacking off of the whole immigration issue, I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm very pessimistic about the recruitment of local teachers in the system, because I don't think the Island government want locals in the system. I became a teacher in 2006. The Island government does not want more locals in the system, and I'll tell you one of my reasons why I say that. From the public service perspective, every time there's a decision to be made when it comes to money, if you take a table and you put contract teachers, local teachers, whenever a decision is to be made about money, there's always a minus on the local teacher side.
Yes.
How do we decrease housing allowance from 2 years to 1 year? How do we decrease island allowance, period? How do we eliminate housing allowance straight across the board? When it comes to contract teachers, how do we, attract and increase and so on? So I disagree with the panelists. I don't want the same benefits as contract teachers. I want more.
Hi.
And I'll tell you why. If you look at your numbers, I taught at Raymond Gardner for 10 years. And in my 10 years at Raymond Gardner, the previous 25, the last local male teacher to have taught at Raymond Gardner was Conrad Hicks. Before I came. The last local male to work at Raymond Gardner was Carl Mills. Just think about that. Since I left Raymond Gardner in 2016, not one local male has joined. I taught on a staff of 24 teachers. Sorry, 27 teachers. One native, and that was me. I was in a staff room of 26 contract teachers. Okay? Fast forward to where we are now. I'm not crying about the development agreement, Dr. Mills, because the one problem Turks Island don't have is a money problem. Turks Island government don't have no money problem. From 2016, I didn't hear one government cry about money. So money is not a problem. What Turks Island government has is a listening problem and a doing problem. We articulate, we put things in black and white, we discuss these things, we talk about teacher retention. My question is, who are you trying to retain? Because at the end of the day, and let me say this too, some of the people you're trying to retain, local and aspect, shouldn't be retained either. Because the other, Angela, Ms. Musgrove, my former accounts teacher, who tried to teach me account, she did her best, but you said something that is so true. And this is what is so sad. I have been personally, I've said this to my boss at Raymond Gardner High School. I've said it to my boss at the department. I've said it to probably 2 or 3 permanent secretaries. I've said it to the minister. There needs to be an audit of teaching in this country. I call it autopsy, because some things there need to be really looked at. But there needs to be an audit. Teachers in this country are not happy. And all of it is not the government's fault. Some of it is their fault. Some need to go. I'm being honest with you. If you are burnt out and don't like your job, you're hurting children. And to me, an option needs to be given for them to leave. Mr. Lansing, you look very nice today, by the way. Thank you. Your mention about incentives, that's a very, very big point. I don't even think incentives is going to help some teachers have a different attitude towards teaching. Some teachers don't like teaching anymore, and for a number of reasons. And for those who we find and we have evaluated properly and assessed properly and have visited the schools properly and hear the problems properly, if we find that there's a good teacher, then for God's sake, give them reasons to stay in the system. I work at Raymond Gardner, I said, for 10 years. That high school has not changed staff in almost 15 years. That's not a bad thing. But you know what is said to me? There are a number of good teachers there who don't want to leave Turks and Caicos, but you've not offering them any incentive to stay. You do, I mean, come on. And we don't have a long list of TIs coming into the system. They're not coming because they see teaching as a backward career. They're not coming in. I'm very sorry to tell you, they're not coming in. They are not coming unless we take an aggressive approach to actually giving teachers a different disposition Most of these kids don't even know what they want to be in life. Silly, you're right. It starts from young. We talk about the entrepreneur program. Listen, when I was in high school, you know how I got in teaching? I want to be a lawyer. You know how I got in teaching? I had a bad day. 2 foreign teachers making me mad. I go in the guidance counselor office, tell Janet how upset I am, and they got to go and blah, 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 blah. So she said, what are you going to do about it? And I said, you know what? Let me become a teacher. And she catch me right there, fill out the form. When I don't cool down and come back and say, okay, I won't follow my form for law, she said, no, that don't gonna be, that gone. I use that example to say this. While I didn't get in this profession, probably under best circumstances, I got in making $1,800 a month, graduate teacher. God bless that time. I think that's when the government did a big increase. Went from 18 to 21, then from 21 to 23.40. Then I went from 23.40 to 25.60. Then I went to 28, then 32. No, I'm giving you the numbers so you understand why males ain't coming into the system. As an HOD at Raymond Gardner High School, my salary was $3,250. Okay? Now in our case, I wasn't paying no mortgage, thank God. I lived with my mom. You know, wasn't no way to go spend no money. And that was that. But the economy back then was different too. The cost of living in this country is ridiculous, Minister. It is ridiculous. When a teacher is making $3,100 a month, rent is $1,200. Husband, children is another. Don't go to IG to buy no food. Yeah. You ain't counting gas, you ain't counting telephone. If at the end of the day, they can't even scrape $400 for each suit. All of those contributes oftentimes to how you feel about your job, how you feel about yourselves. And we talk about incentive, man, listen, I can tell you the truth. Put another $1,500 on all local teachers' salary called a National Service Allowance. Call it one dandy, straight across the board. And when you're giving a raise, stop this nonsense, but straight across the board. Because a contract is a contract. I don't know why, I'm being honest with you. Yeah. If you got a contract is a contract. Yeah. How you getting a raise in contract? It can't work. The final point I want to make tonight, we talk about retention. I want to speak to recruitment. We got a problem. And since I'm on my way out, let me leave this just plain as I can leave this. When I became a teacher, I was schooled by Turks Island government money. Went away for 4 years. The policy was you write the director of education and you tell him when you're coming home. I write 3 times. In all fairness, she didn't remember I write, but when I called and say I'm here, she called the principal in Raymond Gardner and said, for God's sake, find something for Jess to do. And I was hired. There was a contract teacher there, teaching history. When her time was up, because I was hired in a place, they let her go. The current public service system, the government of the day will school a Turks Islander, spend $100,000 on a bachelor's degree teacher. When they come home, unless there's a vacancy that they can apply for, apply for, right. Then compete with all the people in the Caribbean, interview for. Then if they pass the interview, or if the panel don't have mercy on their soul and say it's a TI, for God's sake, give them the job. Exactly. They don't get hired. Minister, PS, DEPSAC, and all the other secretaries, that don't make no sense. No. We cannot build a system that way. The HR office, deputy governor office has to fix that. We cannot build that way. I have a colleague of mine, I can call her name, because you're by the head of straight when she come back. A natural work for the Ministry of Education. She's trained to be an arts teacher. If there's no place for her when she's finished school, we're going to tell her, go back be a secretary with a bachelor's degree and all that can't work. No. We have to fix these things in the system. Yes. And the worst part about it is we talk about growing a civil service. I understand about the whole idea of growing the civil service. But teaching is the foundation. We are getting bad citizens because we have bad teachers. We have unhappy citizens because we have unhappy teachers. Our teachers are, for whatever reason, who ain't burnt out and tired. They are not enjoying teaching. They are. Listen, when I go visit a school, I can't do it more than once for the month. Because when I come back, I can take my pressure pills. I'm telling you the truth. Yeah. Because you hear the stories, you hear so much is going on. So much is going on. One of the incentive packages that we need to look at too, Minister, teaching is a dead-end job. There's no upward mobility unless somebody dead or get fired. Or in my case, keep moving. A young girl asked me, she said, how do I become an education officer? I said, well, study special needs because I don't keep my job, I keep moving. You'll get it. You know the way. Now that was a joke. The point I'm making is this. If you are a bachelor's degree teacher and you go do your master's degree, what's the incentive? Yeah. Now, I want to see that you're using your master's because some of these masters ain't masters of nothing. No, you don't see it and you don't see evidence of it. But you can be in a teaching position for 15, 20 principles. Another point, I made the suggestion already. I say that again because I soon leave. Stop letting principals stay in one position for 15, 20 years. The only thing that can happen after 15 and 20 years, whatever you build up, you're going to break down. Move them, rotate them. Yeah. The staff is tired of them and they're tired of the staff. I'm telling you all the honest truth. They need a breath of fresh air. These are things, we say talk real, right? These are conversations that we have to have. Put school leaders on contract, make it performance-based, create another window of promotion beyond principal, because principal is what I call the graveyard profession. You go there to die. You go there to die. And what we have is, we have for 16 government principals. So you're going to tell me now, in this whole big country, for the next 25 years, if so be it, only 16 people have the qualification to be administrators in this country? What happened to the other 300? I don't do math, so whatever, minus 400 teachers. What happened to the rest of those people? We have to look at a different, and as a matter of fact, we don't need more principals and VPs. We need more school leaders. We need more teacher leaders. We need more teachers who are able to take 4 or 5 teachers of the grade 2 level, grade 5 level, sit down, let's rock on this lesson plan. Why you ain't teaching? Why you keep shouting at the children? That don't make sense. Become a leader within your school. Become a person who understands that education isn't just about the cozy department job where you sit down and cross your leg. And believe me, it's not about that if you love your job. Because everybody just want to go to the department and cross their leg. No. You need teacher leaders. You need people who can inspire change. And yes, Dr. Mills, me and my colleague is roused sometimes. There's too much of program in the school sometimes. It's too much. It's too much. It is too much. I can't even keep track. It's too much. The education programs become like the government email system. Every day is enough. No, it's too much. And what is making me scared? What is making me scared is we are not monitoring how much learning is taking place. I can touch special needs and teaching now. We have a school system where children are being left behind every single day because we are not understanding the relationship between what teachers are going through and what is being transferred to the students. We have to understand this. I'm telling you all this right now. So in our review of teacher retention, we have to understand the dynamics, the elements of the school life, like was said. School change. School has changed. School has changed, and let me say this again, because they didn't want me to say this. You all need to go into these schools more because not everything happening in the school getting reported. No, we need to be in our schools more. We need to talk to teachers more. We need to understand the concepts that affect them. We need to understand their daily lives. The last point I will say is from a book by Sonia Nato. When I did my master's because at that time I thought that I wanted to be a school administrator. I wanted to be a vice principal. But the one that was there would not retire. They keep extending it over and over. I was told when I wrote in for the job that I needed my experience. I should go do my master's. At that time, he didn't even have a bachelor's degree. But that's the way the system says. But I said, okay, Jess, you're reaching 10 years now. You're itch, you're bored, you're tired. You need to get out of school, because if you don't get out of school, you're going to hurt your head or you're going to hurt somebody's child. So I did my master's because I said if I leave school to go venture into something different, I need to upgrade my skills. When I did my master's, I can be honest with you, I did 10 courses. And now I tell you all to investigate some of these master's degrees. I did 10 courses. Of the 10 courses I did, maybe 2 of them made plenty sense to me. One of the courses was a course called Teacher as a Professional. Sonia Nato wrote a book called What Keeps Teachers Going. And in that course, she asked the question. She said that teachers, oftentimes, in the course of their work, the human dimension of being a teacher is ignored. Let me tell you something. Unless you are a teacher, or was a teacher, you will never fully understand the human dimension of being a teacher. What is the human dimension of being a teacher? It is when you go into a room with 35, 28 kids, if you're lucky, and all 33, and all of them are looking for your attention. And you coming from a broken home, your spouse or partner make you mad, you having the worst day of your life, but all 25 of those people want your attention. And you gotta remember that they are children, and you have to do everything possible to create a safe environment. Your principal don't understand we're going through, sometimes stressing you out, don't know why lesson plan late. Nobody asking how your weekend was. And at the end of the day, you're working on a crappy job for a crappy salary. Only is still keeping you alive if you're lucky. That is the human dimension of being a teacher. But the last thing she said was this. She said that if at the end of the day you reach rust and burnout, it's best you leave to preserve your own mental sanity, or before you break and hurt somebody. So, Minister, yes, we fix that. We got to step up. We got the money. Spend the money where it's needed to be spent. We have to do better, and that's all I can say for now.
Okay, Dr. Mills mentioned earlier about attaching student teachers to teachers in the classroom. What are your thoughts on induction, orientation, or mentoring programs to impact teacher retention?
Let me respond to that. It should have been happening a long time. No disrespect to the community college. No disrespect to a college grade teacher. When I became a teacher in 2006, they dumped me in the classroom where nobody could show me nothing. All I had was my college training. I never taught before. Then 1 year later, Ms. Thomas came to tell me she got to come assess me to confirm me. I said, confirm me as what? Teachers do not become teachers when they graduate with a degree. Teachers become teachers when they gain the trust of the students that they have been teaching and the parents' respect that I can leave with my child, and I'm seeing a difference in their improvement. We have a classroom overcrowding situation. Why don't we make assistant teachers a part of the training program full time? These people don't need to be working a water job while they're training to be a teacher. Focus on teaching full time and pay them an incentive. Start the thing from then. If you feel like a pauper while you're going to school, why do you think life can change after you become a teacher? Give them incentives from then. Pay them an extra $600 to $1,000 between 8 o'clock and 12 o'clock, 8 and 2. You need to be to the school, whether it's 3 or 4 days a week. The rest of the time, because let me tell you something, the theory ain't the biggest part of education. It's the in-classroom experience. We need them to get the exposure. Let them see that these 33 kids, they're going to have to be dealing with. And two, we need to understand that students are changing. So the day when one teacher could manhandle 30 children, that day is gone. It ain't easy, so that needs to be a full-time. And while you're doing that too, please put a special education teacher assistant in all these classrooms, especially for the primary school. The kids who are weak, they need help. The kids need help. They're not reading, numeracy, literacy. Yes, we can say that we have qualified teachers, but we need special ed teaching assistants in our classrooms to work with Johnny and Peter, who ain't catching things at the other kids' rate.
I just wanted to add to what my friend, Mr. Walkett, Mr. Walkett said in terms of ensuring that our teachers, that in terms of the environment, you speak about the environment. And I just want to repeat something that I heard numerous times from the regional level about Turks and Caicos Islands. Turks and Caicos Islands is a very unique situation when it comes to education. Our teachers and what they experience in the classroom is nowhere else in the Caribbean. So we have a lot of non-English speakers, and that alone is stressful for our teachers. And the only way we can deal with those stressful situations is if we address that issue, those non-English speakers, and ensuring that we have programs that address those non-English students, and then we would lift those burdens within the classroom. So I agree entirely what Mr. Watkins said. Mr. Watkins spoke about how when he started teaching, he never got the assistance. I cannot share a similar story as that. When I entered the system as a teacher, I was benefit, and it wasn't mandatory. It wasn't something that was a structure at the school that I was teaching, but I had a mentor, and I saw the benefit of having a mentor and someone guiding me and helping me along the way. I was able to tackle the teaching profession easily because I had that assistant. And I think if we have those mentorship programs in place as soon as possible and be able to capture the love and passion for teaching from early on, we will retain a lot of our teachers. Jazz spoke about the passion for teaching. My passion for teaching was not something based on incentives. I told Jazz, he and I were talking, and I said that I wanted to be a teacher from third form. And it was because my teacher at the time, bless her heart, Miss Romaine Pratt, she left me to teach the class because she knew that I understood the topic better. We need to have those systems in school. Let the fifth form students who have a passion for teaching, let them start taking over a class. Let them start teaching a subject. And I gained my passion for teaching for third form. I knew what I wanted to be from third form, a teacher. So I think we can ignite that spark in our students, not necessarily until they go to the community college, but from high school, ignite that spark for teaching from early, like how it was done for me.
Thanks for reinforcing that point, because that's the exact point that I made when we're doing the work experience program. Stop just sending them to beaches and all the other shore club, and nobody goes into teaching. That's what I was saying from the beginning. You have to foster the love in them from now. And they can do it, because when you're teaching and you say, well, this one, explain this to the child. If you notice, sometimes they understand them better than they understand you. So, I mean, this is the only way you can you can't let them get out of the fifth form because they ain't going to teaching. When we went and teaching, was only teaching and nursing used to be, but that was the big program. Now that fall down, it's all doctors and lawyers and things like that. And when speakers come to the school, they be saying, oh, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be this. They never say you can be a teacher. Okay? And that comes from people in the community. So the children are not getting the feedback. They're not feeling it. So when contract workers don't want to come here anymore, then what are we going to do? So if we put this program in place, Minister, this is already, Mr. Walken will know with the special education students, they're out there every Friday. They're not in, we don't have it in the classrooms now, but they're out there every Friday. They go to one of the resorts where they can gain their experience. Let's do this with the teaching and make sure that you set aside at least 10 scholarships for teaching. But like I said, now to begin, every year. I'm talking every year. I mean, make it, I mean, how are we going to get them to do it? Make it mandatory that 2 years at the community college, don't give them no other, scholarship except they go to the community college first. Do that 2 years, and then after that they can go abroad. Now we said, you saying Jess? They can do the bachelor's right here. When we did our bachelor's, Mr. Mills organized the program, and they had teachers coming in from the University of Nova and other universities that would come in on the weekend for the subjects that we had to do face-to-face. So you can still do it. Everybody got the mindset that they're going UK, they're going this way. You're spending money on those children. We're spending money on them, and you can just let them walk free. And we don't have any teachers.
There's one last point, suggestion. because my good boss said me make suggestion. I hope I doing that. He did say so. He said make suggestion. Listen, I can't get discipline. I ain't long. Okay, listen. This is a good suggestion, and I hope that this is taken. I was on the scholarship board for a year. Then they fired me. I didn't ask why. I get fired. I have observed many scholarship boards over the years. And one of my biggest problems I have with the scholarship board, Minister, I don't think no teacher who is in the education system by government should have to apply to the National Scholarship Board to upgrade their qualification.
Exactly.
If the Deputy Governor office could have a professional development fund for the civil service, the Ministry of Education should have its own PDF.
True.
It needs to be established, Minister. It needs to be established. We cannot on one foot. I don't investigate that. We cannot on one foot tell teachers upgrade, train, but then you set the goal by fight for a scholarship when they give scholarship to all these done teachers. I'm sorry. I take that back. I take that back. So,
Jazz, let me just add something. Mr. Howell, you could confirm this or not, but let me just add something, Jazz. In terms of the Professional Development Fund, and I could be wrong, but I believe, I could be wrong, but Mr. Howell, you could confirm this or not, because I am benefiting right now from professional development from in the ministry right now. So yes, I am benefiting right now. I'm studying. So I am thinking, and Mr. Howell could confirm or not, that professional development funds is set aside for teachers, but it's whether or not you apply, you take the structure, because there's a procedure in terms of quotation. And
Mr. I will confirm that, please.
Yes, Ms. Jewell should be able to confirm that it is. Yeah.
no, the PS probably could confirm
increased.
that.
That's why I said the PS can confirm that.
Let me share, I don't know if the public is able to hear me, but in terms of the professional development fund through the Deputy Governor's Office has supported a number of teachers to achieve their upgrades. And for all of the applications that we have sent, I think within the last 3 years, they've all been successful. All of them true. It's, yeah. So the point Mr. Wilson makes. Let me ask a silly question.
Mike, they can't hear you.
I don't know if it still exists, right? But I know it's the Chevron, I think it's called, scholarship that's awarded. I know the British Council used to award a number of scholarships. I don't know if that has been deliberately stopped, and it was specifically designed for, it was specifically done for teachers. But is that something that we can probably explore once again?
I believe so. That program, Dr. Mills, is still operating. There are Turks and Caicos Islanders who are benefiting from that master's degree mainly. And then I benefited from the Commonwealth scholarship when I did my master's. That afforded me a year in the UK as well. So that's still an opportunity that's made available. It's not directed to teachers, but a teacher who applies, I'm sure, if they qualify, would benefit from it. So there are those opportunities in the system already.
Okay. We have gotten much food for thought this evening. Our keynote speaker and our esteemed panelists have given us a range of ideas and strategies that can be used to improve teacher retention. We have heard about raising pay, improving working conditions, supporting teachers' mental health, giving local teachers incentives, and giving scholarships for teaching, just to name a few. I am certain that the takeaways from this symposium will further the work that must be done to encourage persons to remain in the teaching profession. David Hasselcorn once said, "Teaching is the essential profession, the one that makes all professions possible. Therefore, it is important for us to elevate the teaching profession, to keep our many excellent teachers, as we know that a quality teacher is the single most critical factor to student success. I now call on Honorable Rachel Taylor for closing remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's put our hands together for our guest speaker. I think he left. But let's put our hands together for Honorable Robert Hall. Very, very valuable contributions indeed. And of course, to our panelists for being so passionate in their delivery this evening. But as the Minister for Education, I just want to say that I am quite elated. I'm quite pleased with the responses, because it shows that as a government and as a minister, we are indeed on the right path in terms of ensuring that there is greater retention of our teachers. So I decided to put my speech in the bag, and I just took notes based on your presentation. Now, I just want to mention in terms of the scholarship opportunities, I noticed that one of the panelists did mention an opportunity for money to be set aside just for teachers. But just today, I took the opportunity to speak to a cohort of fifth form students at the Marjorie-Baston High School. And what I was lobbying for is to encourage them to join the teaching profession. But I think it needs more than that. It needs more than just the minister going into the schools. But I must say that whenever an opportunity is afforded for our individuals within our lifelong learners, let me say it like that, it's inclusive of our teachers. We always say to teachers, qualify yourselves to a highest level that you want. Upgrade yourself, retool yourself. But I must say, there are a very limited number of persons who sometimes take on that opportunity. I must say it, especially in the area of special needs education. We are crying out for those general special needs teachers to come. Register for a scholarship. We have recently upgraded the amount of money that we've been recently given to the Professional Development Fund. Teachers are benefiting from it. So I want to encourage teachers tonight, register, apply, I should say, for a scholarship. That is always given to our teachers. We do not deny teachers an opportunity. Now, that's since I've been here for the last 2 years. Now, I do understand in terms of making it mandatory for a certain number of persons, I should say, a certain number of scholarships to be set aside, definitely. But we can put a number of scholarships aside as much as we want. But we have to go into the schools. And we have to ensure that our students understand the importance of local teachers in the Turks and Caicos. We'll come to the incentivization soon. But I want to say this to teachers as well. You have a responsibility yourselves to ensure that you encourage these cohorts of students. You yourselves as teachers cannot be negative about the teaching profession, because it's going to be a turnoff to our students. But I also want to say I love the idea about the students who are in the cohort range from sometimes third form, who go into, for example, Beaches, Turks and Caicos, or other organizations. Remember, it is the leaders within the schools that make the decision. You can ensure that there are 5 students who are selected and say to them, the same way in which you align them with the hotels, you can align them with the schools as well. But maybe I think we need to do is make a more assertive effort and be more intentional and strategic to say, we're coming to Clement Howell, whether they're interested or not, let's allow about 10 students to go into the schools to gain that experience. And maybe they would come in saying, I don't want to be a teacher. But after they experience it, now that is one point that I took tonight. After they experience it, they may say, you know what? This is what I want to do. So I've really taken that point. Because I remember when I was at Enid Capron, Miss Lucille, you all used to send some children to us at Enid Capron. You used to, but I think it died. But that's a wonderful experience. And I think I'm going to take that away, definitely. Because sooner than later, I love that idea. We can reintroduce it, but this time be more intentional and strategic. And when we talk about teachers, we want to focus on, my thing is this. As a Minister for Education, I realized that within our primary schools, there are roughly 70% of our local teachers in the primary school, and that's commendable. But in the high school, secondary education, we only have about 20 to 30% locals. So that's where our focus is supposed to be. I went to Michael Teachers College and some of the other universities late last year, looking at how we can partner, introducing some of those courses within our community college. But it was a challenge there. So we're trying to build that out, but not just build it out through our community college. Up to now, if there are individuals in our high schools who are interested in secondary opportunities, that will be available to them. But we are trying to build out a program also in our community college. I believe if we introduce secondary bachelor's degree into our community college, we will see a greater output of teachers within the Turks and Caicos Islands. So we are definitely looking at that. I'm going from the back up, and they talk about mentoring programs. Now, I could tell you, I smiled when I heard you all mention the opportunity to allow our current students who are in the associate's and the bachelor's degree program to come into our schools. And what we have done, I've picked up the phone and called just about everyone. Everyone. If I didn't get them, then Mr. Howell got them. We also met with the principal of the community college to say to them, are you interested? Because what we really realized is that they are doing their associates and bachelors, but they are working somewhere, IGA. They are working in beaches. So this is what we're doing now. Because the cleaning of schools will now be contracted, our head count within the civil servants will be increased. So that will provide an opportunity. I have already spoken to the DG about this. I've already spoken to my team about this. I want, as a matter of urgency, once we get this privatization of our cleaning of schools, we want our associate's degree teachers and our bachelor's degree teachers to continue to be within our schools. But you know what? I must say, we have a large number of our associates and bachelor's degree students now. If they're not with me, they're probably with Mr. Mills. They are in our schools now. And if I fight too hard, I might take all of Mr. Mills' associates and bachelor's degree teachers who are in training. But we have to do that. And I love an opportunity such as this to look deeper into what it is that we can do to retain our teachers. Because this is what's happening. Jamaicans usually say teaching is a stepping stone. So that's what Turks Islanders are doing too. They're getting that bachelor's degree certificate, diploma, and when they're finished, wherever they were working at beaches, they remain there. I went into South Caicos again in December of last year, and I was surprised to learn that we have 4 associate degree teachers in South Caicos working at the Treasury and elsewhere. So Ms. Elliott and I have already spoken to those teachers because actually we are introducing satellite campus on the island of South Caicos. So those teachers now will be able to do their bachelor's degree online. So these are the kind of opportunities that we are working on to ensure that our teachers who are currently in training are provided with that opportunity for more internship. Now, English as a second language, I think that is a sore issue within our schools because of our large influx. So our curriculum would definitely address that in greater details. I have that ticked on my agenda. Now, let me go back to an idea in terms of recruitment. I had one of my students at Long Bay High School, and she said to me, Minister, I've been at Long Bay High School for 2 years, and still I'm not in my permanent position. I've had the opportunity to speak to the DG in relation to that. But I say this to say, I struggle with teachers returning from whatever university or whether it is at our community college and have to fight for their position. I struggle with that. I've spoken to my former PS about that. I've spoken to Mr. Howell about that. I struggle with that. And that is something that we will have to address. I've spoken to the DG, so I'm quite sure that that is something that will be coming very, very soon. I don't think they should have to compete for the position. Now, we would say that it happens with all other professions within government, but I don't think teachers should have to compete. They shouldn't. Where are they going? If we don't hire them, where are we going to send them? So I totally agree with that point. Now, another thing, too, in terms of the immigration and our parents, remembering that we sign off on the rights of a child, but I just want to say this. When we look very carefully at our population policy, it speaks very clearly as to who is within our schools. We have 50% non-nationals. I think the number is even greater than that. Than non-nationals. It's 50% base. It's 50%, Ms. Howell? About 50%. But my thing is this. A lot of those students were born here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. They were born here. I can guarantee you that. They were born here. So we have to face facts and ask ourselves, what are we going to do with these students? And that is the reason why when I made the bold decision to say that the BOT students will have an opportunity to go to community college, I make no excuse for that. Because if we don't do that, you know what's going to happen? We're going to lose them to the UK. Because when they reach on that airport and they present their BOT passport, the immigration officer says, welcome home. So we better accept them because we are educating them. So that is something that we really have to accept. Now, of course, in terms of our immigration policy, in terms of the work permit holders, non-skilled work permit holders, coming in with their children or come in first and bring their children 6 and 7 after, that is a critical issue. And I'm quite sure that the Minister of Immigration, in its new amendments, will address that. That is one thing in terms of our immigration policy. Now, in terms of our parents, now I could say this. I was a principal at the Enid Capron Primary School where the largest influx of Haitian parents were there. So to say that a lot of the challenges that we're having at our PTAs are a result of, I disagree. I totally disagree. They were some of my best parents. They were some of my most supportive parents. They were some of the most. So now as leaders of our various institutions, we have to get very creative in the way we deal with our parents and the way we deal with our institution. Yeah, we understand that as a government, we have to do our part too in terms of the immigration, but we have to become very creative in the way in which we hold our PTAs. I'm going to share this as a little tip for our principals. PTA shouldn't be about talking down to the parents. That's an opportunity to educate your parents, inform them about the policies. That's what PTA is about. If you have immigration issues, that's when you need to bring the immigration officer in, speak to your parents. If you're having behavioral problems, that's when you need to bring the specialist in. Make PTA an opportunity for your people to gain knowledge as to how they can better deal with themselves, their children. That's what PTA is about. PTA is not about saying, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right. Gone are the days. And if we continue to do that, PTA will continue to be what it is today. So that's a strategy that I want to share with our principal. Now, another thing, too, in terms of, Mr. Mills made a point in terms of providing teachers with the opportunity, and I thought I was coming here to bring some good news to our teachers. Now, remember now, a part of the living wage policy, it included 3 programs, and 3 of the programs was free access to daycare center. And I said with my team, while we were sitting down, because actually we are using our people, our education officers, our teachers who have retired, as much as we can, a part of these 3 social programs. I've reached out to our retired teachers. I've reached out to teachers who have left and I've said, this is your time. This is your time to open that daycare center. This is your time if you want to be a part of our after-school programming. We will pay you. We did. I also want to make mention, too, based on what Lucia is saying, some teachers are still in. Now, I know my first year I came in, there was an exodus of about 18 teachers who left. That was already in the making. I could have changed it. Yes, I know I could have. I've listened attentively, and that's the reason why I know teachers over 61 or 60 went home this year. You're still there, and if you want to be honest, you're still there. But based on what others have said, the older teachers will have to change with the times. because teaching can't be the chalk and talk anymore. So they have to be susceptible to the changes in terms of the new methodologies in teaching. It comes with that. And like Jazz said, if you don't want to be there, just go. Give somebody else an opportunity. But we are definitely ensuring that our teachers who left the school, in terms of those teachers who have retired, and not only the retired ones, those ones who decided to take the package, we reached out to them as well. Daycare centers is your time because it's going to be free. So you can make that money. You don't have to worry. All you need to get the belong of students, and boom, there you go. We pay you. Now, I also want to mention, too, for daycares, we are also looking at free daycare. Now, remember now, when we talk about free daycare, we're looking at our teachers as well, our teachers' children, free access to daycare. Now, this can go further, because based on some of the points that Dr. Carlton raised, of which I'll ask him for that, because let me say this, too. My first year into government, I said to the Premier, I want a package for our teachers. Nothing happened for the first year. But into the second year, that is when we decided to do the review, the civil service review. The tenders closed on February 27th. They're now going through the process because there were 7 persons, 7, I should say, companies or individuals. So therefore, it's going to take a period of 6 months, based on my information from the DG, for that final decision to be made. I shouldn't say decision, for them to present to the government their findings. Now, the reason why teachers are not seeing a separate package for themselves, like today because of my push, is because the Premier said, you wait. Allow the DG to go through her review, and then we will look carefully, because the review may speak to special package for the teachers. We don't know what it will reveal. But following that, we will be looking at a special package for teachers. And looking at the teacher licensure that we have recently developed, it speaks to opportunities to incentivize teachers in the form of a package. But we can also use what Dr. Mills has to help to build our package as we progress. Now, when it comes to land, I heard everybody talking about land, giving teachers that particular portion. But we have just completed phase 1 of the land policy, but it speaks to those persons who are currently registered and providing that opportunity for that 50% discount. But I know persons are saying, if you give the country that 50% discount based on those persons with their CPL, conditional purchasing lease, teachers want 75 or 85. Teachers want to be placed in a special category, and I do understand that. So now this is only phase 1 of the land policy. Those are ideas that I could take forward as a part of the package. I did listen to that. Now, the rotation of teachers, yes, Mr. Jazz, you continue to tell me that. And to be honest, I agree. I strongly agree. You know why? I think sometimes we become very complacent. And you know, sometimes when you're on the other islands there, you know, you need to come up to Prov and see the light. I totally agree with that, Mr. Jazz. So that's something that I have ticked off with my red ink. I do believe in rotation. But another thing, I think some of us were so passionate in terms of saying there was no upward mobility. I strongly believe in succession planning. Succession planning is critical. I must know that a pathway is paved for me. But I also want to make mention that the teacher licensure is a policy document that was taken to cabinet. But however, we can't implement it until we have taken it to make amendments in the education ordinance. So that's a part of the legislative agenda for this year. So the teacher licensure creates that pathway. But I also want to say to principals, you don't have to stay there. I stay. I left because after 19 years, I felt like I've done all I could. And I said, it's time for me to move on. And there are opportunities within the civil service for you too to apply and move on. You don't have to remain stagnant. When it's your time to move on, or you know, and this is what I want to say this to our EOs. You have a responsibility to ensure that this information is communicated, is disseminated into our schools. You know the information. It's your responsibility to, as education officers, to speak to the teachers, because I'm going to be honest, as Minister for Education, you know me. I'll be there every day if I can. I'll be there every day. So we want to use our education officers to speak to the teachers. Get your teachers together. Speak to them. Bring that information to us. I've had the opportunity to meet with large cohorts of teachers through Teams, but it was mainly to discuss the policy. Now, Ms. Lucille, I totally disagree with you when you talk about just making policies and throwing it down. I remember my first year going in, but I understand what she's saying. And I was like, this policy who? For the teachers? I said, are they aware of it? My team was a bit reluctant and said, we've spoken to them once. I said, well, I want you to speak to them in my presence. I want to hear you speak to them about it again. I want to hear their input. We have been doing that, but I still think we need to create an opportunity at least once per term to speak to our teachers. And you know what? It's going to be a challenge to do it face-to-face, but virtually, Teams would work. Now, I've started doing that, but it took up a lot of my time because we were discussing policies. But I've taken that into consideration. But I also want to say to the EOs, you are the ears for my teachers. You listen to them. You bring that back to us. So when we meet once per term, we will be able to discuss those challenges. Now, I don't want to be too long, but I talk about the utilization of retired teachers. You talk about the improved packages. And please don't let Dr. Mills leave with that information. Let's make sure we get that out of him, from him. In terms of the resources, I think we're doing a great job with resources. I think we are. But we can still do more. And I'm so grateful for the partnership of individuals like Flo TCI, who actually scope out the work for Ona Clinton Primary School. And this week, they will be officially handing over the IT room to them. So I think partnership is going to be critical in helping to build out our resources within our school. I'm a minister who listens. I listen attentively and I act. Now, I want to say this because there are competing priorities. Sometimes I'm not able to act in the manner in which I want to and in a timely manner, but I do act. And I'm going to fight for you. I will. And you will see changes because I'm going to remind you. But with all of that said, I just want to remind us about I heard a person saying that the last time we had an increase. Now, the government did bring back gratuity, right? Pension, right? The pension scheme. So I thought that was a good thing. But what happens now, people of the Turks and Caicos Islands? We needed to bring back the pension as a matter of urgency. We did that. Because I don't think it was fair as a country to bring back pensions just for teachers. Holistic approach. And if we have to do any tweaking just to address that package, then we do that. But I think we've done a very good job in addressing that. So I also want to say to each and everyone who is here today that most of what was said, I nudged Keisha and I said, you know what? If you listen very carefully to what they said, it's quite doable. Your recommendations were quite doable. It seemed a bit harsh because, we are teachers. So, when we speak with emphasis because that's how we get children to understand. I was not upset in any way. I really appreciate it. I highlighted exactly what needs that we can work on as a matter of urgency, like now, without money. And then as we look at our budget, now we already have a budget just about set, but we have supplementary budgets. We have next year coming. We have time, and we will get it done. And as a Minister of Education, I want to take this opportunity to say a special thank you to all the teachers, whether private or government, from around the Turks and Caicos Islands, for the continuous work that you do to making a difference in the lives of each and every one of our children. And to our EO education officers who seem to be so stressed out sometimes, we hear your cry. We hear your cry, and we will address your concerns. And I'm quite sure if my premier is not listening to me, he knows when I go into that house, when I go into cabinet, I fight for you all. But there were some priority areas that I needed to address. But now it's being addressed. So the next thing is the teacher's package. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Taylor. I now invite Mr. Renwell Lewis, Education Officer, to come and bring the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. The pleasure is mine to bring these proceedings to a close. I can look back now and say that the individuals selected to speak tonight were the right individuals. From Mr. Hall, who brought the keynote address, to all the members of the panel, thank you very much for your contributions. They were worthwhile, especially on this very timely topic. I would like to also say thank you very much to the members of the team who worked with me to get this matter off the ground. They would have been Mr. Timad Butterfield, Ms. Nadra Kirlu, Ms. Sheena. Sheena, who else was on the panel? Ms. Valida from North Caicos. We had our vice principal from each island, Ms. Claudel from Grand Turk, and Ms. Kishma from South Caicos. This is the second year in which we are doing this symposium, and this symposium went along with the same group that have been working with Education Week for the last 2 years. And the question was, what could we do to spice up Education Week? The starting and the initial suggestion, which came from Mr. Butterfield, was why not have a symposium where we identify a topical issue and we seek to have it done. That was the brainchild of that group starting last year. We've gone back again this year, and we found another topic, and we've also found the right group of people to say what we wanted to say. So thank you very much, panel. I honestly regret not joining the panel, but that is a story for another time. But Mr. Walkie, and I would have to say to you, you put that bad idea in the minister's head about rotating of teachers. Rotating. The principals, you were speaking specifically to principals. But I will say this to you, boss. Remember, the principal who would have been in that one island for all them years done married, you trying to break up families, boss? Leave it alone. Okay, sir. I just felt I needed to say that. Fox Island government has broken up enough families without shifting around people. Thank you very much. Okay. This event wouldn't have been possible without the Ministry of Education. You come to them with an idea, and they accept it, and they fund it. So this entire spread and everything, Ministry of Education. And Ms. Brenda, I know you're listening. Thank you very much for all of your efforts. To Mr. Bean, this is the second year in which you have worked with us. Thank you very much. And I have to extend that thank you because we were meant for a 5:30 start, and we know what time we started. So thank you very much, sir. Also to Beaches, Turks and Caicos for hosting us. Ms. Swan, thank you very much. And having said that, I guess there's nothing left to say. But to those individuals from the news media that are here with us, thank you. And I think we are going to have to make that an annual part of this exercise, if it is to continue next year, to have you all here. So thank you very much to everyone that is here, and those of you that stayed until the end. Thank you very much, and good evening. Jesus, yeah. Sorry. Ms. Bean, our MC, who took up this task. To be honest, honestly, I'll tell you, Mr. Howell mandated on Thursday that Ms. Bean take the job. And she accepted, and she's done a good job. So thank you very much. If there is anybody else I forgot, excuse me for forgetting you, but it wasn't intentional. Good evening again. Oh, sorry. No, I wouldn't go. Madam Minister, I know how you go, so I corrected myself on this one. Madam Minister, thank you very much for your presence. Thank you very much for your words. Thank you very much for your commitments. The teachers would have been listening, so we wait and we see. Thank you very much, and good night, everyone.